today.
You know, Charles, on the increase in production at home, Republicans counter that the new drilling, is largely because of deals struck in the Bush administration, and that this administration has really not done all it could to expand energy resource development here at home.
That's absolutely right, and the other reason that we've had this explosion of production has to do with the new technology, the horizontal drilling. Again, something about which the administration has nothing to do. But I was impressed by the president's analysis of this situation where, you know, we have no control over the global price of oil. We're dependent on oil from unfriendlies. And he says, as we heard, you know, drilling for oil to relieve our dependency is not a solution. It's not a plan. He said we got to go into clean energy. And he talked about something really revolutionary today, algae, a $14 million grant for the development of algae. So it's not oil. His solution is algae. And because we know that the Secretary of Energy is a physicist who won the Nobel Prize, the president, knowing all this stuff, said that one of the reasons that we should be doing this is because we can grow algae here in the United States. Now, it happens that algae will grow anywhere on Earth. I looked it up while I was away for those 3 days. You thought I was sunning myself. I did research. It grows in oceans, in lakes, and ponds, in your swimming pool when the pool man's on vacation, in snow, in ice, on soil, on turtles, sloths, the bark of trees, and rocks. Now, why are we drilling for oil? We are the Saudi Arabia of rocks. We have a mountain range called the Rockies, and we are allowing ourselves to be dominated by these oil producers. I think he's onto something here that is truly revolutionary. Why would you build a pipeline, a Keystone pipeline, that would build real oil from Canada to put in real refineries and put in real existing cars when you can do algae? I think he's onto something, and I think it shows the vision, the hope and change that he promised in 2008.
Tongue out of cheek, Bill.
I'm sorry I brought the level of discussion so low.
But to that point, the administration's focus on clean energy, the president as a candidate promised to be off foreign oil, importing foreign oil, in 10 years. We're at 3.5. And there is a focus in this administration on clean energy as an alternative. And what about that on the Republican side and how it plays politically?
Look, I think Solyndra and other like companies, and now we'll have algae versions of Solyndra. They won't be, it doesn't sound quite as sexy, the solar algae, it'll be Algae Indra or something like that, and they'll waste $500 million of our taxpayers' money. And we had someone on the show earlier, it's a little clip, a Democratic strategist saying, oh, that's not an issue, that's not a big issue or a legitimate issue. I don't buy that. That embodies the crony capitalism of the Obama administration and the we know best in Washington, and we're going to target money to this rather than to that. Deregulate, let people drill on public lands, let people invest in solar energy and algae if they want to as well, and we will gradually solve our energy problem.
Chuck, one thing about the coverage of this, there weren't a lot of media organizations saying that the president doesn't control the price of gas when President Bush was in office. You didn't hear a lot of that at that time. Is that fair?
I don't know. I don't remember the coverage as vividly as you do, Brett.
We can remind you if you do.
It's often, you know, through the prism of what happened in the President Bush.
It is true that the Democrats, we just had some tape on Fox earlier, Nancy Pelosi trashed George Bush for allegedly raising the price of gas when it was going up when he was president. Listen, I almost want to say, like, how do you know a politician is talking nonsense about energy? It's because his lips are moving. You know, we have been at this now decades, claiming we're going to become independent of foreign oil, et cetera, both parties. It never happens. No, oil is fungible. There's rising demand in the third world.
But there has to be a commitment. There has to be a commitment here in Washington to do it.
Look, it's easy to say a pox in all your houses. Obama argues against oil because he's right. It's not going to happen overnight. But the Republicans, the conservatives, have argued for 25 years to open up the Arctic. And what did the Democrats argue in the 80s and the 90s and the last decade? Oh, it'll take 3 years or 5. Well, that was a quarter century ago, and they blocked it every year. The Clinton administration stopped it every year. And still today, after a quarter of a century, oh, it's not going to happen tomorrow. Of course not, but there is a history here of reducing the domestic production of the United States, and that's the reason we are in the hole we are.
Well, Charles, it is a fact that thanks to North Dakota, domestic production of oil in the United States has has risen during Obama's term. Now, maybe he didn't do anything to help it, but while he was there, it went up.
But why would you deny the opportunity to double and triple that increase?
Well, I don't know that there's a policy ready to hand to make that happen, but
How about the Arctic Oddlife Refuge? How about drilling on the continental coast in the Atlantic or the Pacific?
yeah, well,
All these are shut down by the Democrats.
well, look, there's some Republican governors who've been around called Jeb Bush who weren't too crazy about drilling off of Florida either.
Crazy or not, the regulations are made in Washington.
I'm going to have to get in here.